Hey friends, today I have come with the 2025 American superhero movie Captain America 4, meaning Captain America, Brave New World. At the very beginning, we see General Thaddeus Ross elected as the new President of the United States in the present time. Okay, so after being elected as President, Mr. Ross gives a speech at his inauguration, saying that we must now stand united, meaning, with the dangers in the world increasing, all the countries of the world must work together to stop them. But since Mr. Ross's past record isn't very good, many people take his call for unity as nothing more than empty words. Anyway, from here the scene shifts to 5 months later. Here we see our new Captain America, meaning Sam Wilson, along with the new Falcon, Joaquin Torres, as the two arrive in Mexico to complete a mission. By the way, let me mention here that the movie contains a lot of political plots, so the story is often shown in a twisted and tangled way. But for your convenience, I will explain it in a very straightforward manner, which may not match scene by scene with the movie. Let's start the story a little differently. You surely remember the Celestial from the Eternals movie, the one that the Eternals had completely buried long before it could fully emerge. Yes, the plot of this movie revolves around that buried celestial body. By now, almost all the major countries on Earth have learned that this celestial body contains an extremely valuable metal called adamantium, stronger than vibranium, and extremely rare. That's why all the major countries of the world have started trying to get their hands on this metal so they can use it in various military applications. But Mr. Ross realizes that if things continue this way, a war could break out between the major countries. That's why he proposes a meeting to bring all the countries together, where he will announce that the extremely valuable metal in the Celestial's body will be mined collectively by all countries, and later divided equally among them. This way, no country will have a reason to cause trouble against another. However, even before this meeting, a group called the Serpent Society steals a sample of adamantium that was in Japan. Now many might wonder, where did the sample of adamantium in Japan come from? Actually, various countries had collected several samples to study the Celestial's body. From these they realized that the body contained the extremely valuable metal, adamantium, and that very sample was stolen from Japan. As a result, under President Ross's orders, Sam and Torres arrive in Mexico and retrieve the adamantium sample from the Serpent Society group. But unfortunately, the leader of that group, Sidewinder, escapes from Sam's grasp. So at this moment, Sam doesn't know from whom the sample was stolen. After this mission is completed, when Torres tells Sam that he will accompany him on all future missions, Sam informs him that he is still not fully trained and needs proper training. That's why Sam takes Torres to Isaiah Bradley. So after bringing Torres to Isaiah for training, President Ross invites Sam and Torres to attend that special meeting. At this meeting, the president will call on all the other countries to work together. Upon learning this, Isaiah advises Sam that he is not comfortable working on Ross's behalf at all, because Captain America has never worked under anyone else. Moreover, Ross's history is far from good. In fact, because of Ross, Isaiah had to spend several decades in prison, which is why he harbors resentment towards him. However, Sam calms him down and brings him along to the White House. There, Mr. Ross meets Sam alone and proposes that he take responsibility for reforming the Avengers team, since the old Avengers are no longer around. Hearing this, Sam happily accepts his proposal. At the right moment, the president then attends the meeting and begins explaining the adamantium agreement to all the countries. He explains how all the countries will work together to mine adamantium, and how it will later be distributed equally. But during the meeting, suddenly Isaiah and 4 other soldiers open fire on the president, attempting to assassinate him. Within moments, Isaiah and the 4 others are arrested. Surprisingly, Sam begins to suspect that Isaiah may not have acted on his own knowledge. It's very likely that someone else forced him to carry out the attack. As a result, later Sam appears before the president and requests that he be given responsibility for Isaiah's case. But the president straightforwardly tells him that he already knows Isaiah, and that Sam himself brought him to the meeting. Ignoring Sam's request, the president assigns the case to a lady officer named Ruth Batsarup, a former Black Widow. He even cancels the proposal he had made to Sam to reform the Avengers team at this moment. But Sam isn't someone who gives up so easily, so along with Torres, he starts investigating the case on his own. First, he talks to Isaiah in prison and confirms that he didn't fire at the president on his own. Someone else had controlled him to carry out the act. Later, when Torres checks the video footage of the attack, he notices that the phones of Isaiah and the other 4 participants began to blink suddenly just before the attack. Then, as soon as a specific piece of music started playing, they all launched the assault on the president. So, it's very likely that all of this is somehow related to mind control. Amidst this investigation, Sidewinder suddenly attacks Sam in his car one day. Although Sam narrowly avoids the attack, he defeats him. Fortunately, from Sidewinder, he learns that the person behind the attack on the president is the same individual who had used Sidewinder and his group to steal the adamantium sample. So by capturing Sidewinder and tracking his phone through Torres, Sam realizes that the person behind all these events is currently at an abandoned military camp in Virginia. As soon as he learns this, Sam and Torres immediately set out for Virginia. Meanwhile, when Miss Ruth checks the video footage and realizes that the blinking of all their phone screens was linked to the attack on the president, she tries to speak with the culprits, only to see that one of the prison guards has shot the other four, leaving Isaiah unharmed, and then committed suicide. As a result, Miss Ruth transfers Isaiah to a higher security prison to protect him. Meanwhile, on the road, when Sam learns that the attack on the criminals in the prison has already taken place, he wants to return to ensure Isaiah doesn't face any further danger. But shortly after, he realizes that the person must have figured out that Sam was heading to the military camp in Virginia, which is why they deliberately carried out the prison attack, to make Sam return without reaching the military camp. But Sam decides not to turn back, and instead heads straight to the military camp. Meanwhile, after the attack on the president at the White House, all the countries of the world begin to withdraw from the adamantium agreement. Although Mr. Ross speaks with the leaders of several countries, and manages to convince them again, the Prime Minister of Japan absolutely refuses to agree to the deal. As a result, Mr. Ross sets out directly for Tokyo to speak with him face to face. But during the journey, the president receives a call from the very person who had orchestrated the attack on him. And through the conversation between the president and that man, we come to know that the person is none other than Samuel Stearns, the one we were introduced to in the Incredible Hulk movie. In that movie, we saw that Bruce Banner used to send his blood samples to Samuel in hopes of curing himself, and Samuel had stored a large amount of those blood samples. With those very samples, he later transformed Emil Blonsky into Abomination. But at that exact time, Samuel accidentally suffered a head injury, and a few drops of Hulk's blood fell onto the wound. As a result, his head mutated, and his intelligence increased even further. When Mr. Ross found out about this, he cunningly had Samuel imprisoned for the crime of transforming Blonsky into Abomination, so that he could exploit Samuel's enhanced intellect for his own purposes. Ross told Samuel that if he used his advanced intellect to help him rise step by step until he eventually became the President of the United States, then as President, he would pardon all of Samuel's crimes. But in the present time, even after being President for almost 5 months, Mr. Ross still hasn't freed Samuel. The reason is that for some time now, Ross has been suffering from a terminal illness, and the only person capable of creating a cure for it is Samuel. This medicine is something Mr. Ross has to take daily. So firstly, if Samuel were set free, Ross might not get the medicine anymore. And secondly, he might never find another mind as brilliant as Samuel's. That's why he keeps Samuel imprisoned. But when Samuel realizes that Ross will never release him, he begins adding gamma radiation to the president's medicine, so that the president himself will soon transform into a monster like the Hulk. At the same time, he also begins planning a way to have Ross removed from the presidency. According to this plan, he used the Serpent Society to steal the adamantium sample from Japan. Later, he even orchestrated the attack on the president during the meeting with various countries, so that the other nations would refuse to agree to the deal. And now Samuel calls the president to inform him that he has taken control of all the guards at the military camp, and has escaped from there. Hearing this, Mr. Ross becomes very anxious. Immediately, he assigns Miss Ruth the responsibility of going to the military camp in Virginia to investigate what exactly happened there. Meanwhile, he himself arrives in Tokyo and begins a meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan. There, the Japanese Prime Minister directly tells him that they will never again agree to the adamantium deal, because Japanese intelligence has learned that it was actually America who orchestrated the theft of the adamantium sample from Japan. They claim that by having Captain America recover the sample, America had deceived Japan. But in reality, this too was part of Samuel's plan. He did not want Ross to succeed in the adamantium deal in any way. He wanted Ross to be humiliated in front of all the nations, and ultimately removed from the presidency. That's why he provided false evidence to Japanese intelligence, which, upon receiving it, led them to refuse to agree to America's deal. Meanwhile, we see Sam and Torres arrive at the military base and secretly enter it. There, they discover a small lab, and notice photos of Isaiah along with all the others who had carried out the attack on the White House. At the same time, Torres goes through one of the computers, and learns that Samuel had been using a technology by which, as soon as a phone's light flashed, the person would fall completely under control. Then, through a specific piece of music, all of them could be triggered to carry out a certain task. Even more surprising, Sam finds Mr. Ross's blood report in a vial of medicine there, which he keeps with him for testing. And then, they finally come face to face with Samuel Stearns. He explains to them that he orchestrated the theft of the adamantium sample and the attack on the president at the White House because Mr. Ross used him. And even though he is now president, Ross still hasn't freed him as promised, so now he plans to remove Ross from his position permanently. But when Sam tells him that many innocent people are dying because of this, Samuel has to stop. At that moment, Samuel takes control of some military personnel on the site and makes them fight against Sam and Torres. Taking advantage of the situation, Samuel escapes from the site. Shortly after, Miss Ruth arrives at the location to help Sam and Torres fight against them. Then they leave the site and go straight to Sam's military friend Dennis, who has Sidewinder in custody. There, Sam asks Sidewinder to find out what Samuel's real plan might be. Sidewinder then tells him that even though Ross is president, he hasn't freed Samuel as promised, which is why Samuel now wants to provoke a war between Japan and America. If it starts, America and President Ross will be humiliated in front of the entire world. In the present time, Samuel's only goal is to tarnish President Ross's reputation by any means. As soon as Sam learns this, he immediately heads toward President Ross, determined to warn him by any means, so that a war between the two countries does not break out. Meanwhile, the Japanese government arrives at the Celestial Island with enough ships to collect adamantium from the Celestial's body, since they are no longer honoring any agreement with America. When Mr. Ross learns that Japan has brought their warships to the island, he also arrives there with several of his own warships and aircraft. However, Sam reaches the site just in time, meets with the president, and explains that all of this is part of Samuel's plan. He wants to start a war between the two countries to take revenge on Ross. So Sam warns the president not to fall into that trap. The president understands everything and does not give any attack orders. However, suddenly, 2 American fighter jets attack a Japanese warship because the pilots of those jets had also been controlled by Samuel. As the Japanese respond by sending several fighter jets to attack America, Sam and Torres use their flying suits to destroy the 2 American jets before the battle can start, causing Torres to get seriously injured in the process. But the war that was about to break out between the two countries is immediately stopped. Okay, so while Torres is admitted to the hospital, his old partner Bucky Barnes meets Sam to comfort him. Meanwhile, we see Samuel carry out his plan by killing Sam's military friend Dennis, because Dennis had been given the responsibility of testing the medicine that was recovered from Samuel's lab. At that moment, Dennis had realized that the medicine contained gamma radiation. So to prevent Dennis from informing Sam about this in advance, he kills him. Then, he himself appears before Sam and surrenders. However, Sam tells him, "I know you don't want to kill Mr. Ross. You want to humiliate him in front of everyone. But the part about starting a war between the two countries is still not clear to me. You were trying to achieve something else by starting a war between the two countries," Sam says. Hearing this, Samuel replies, "You are absolutely right. I just wanted to reveal Mr. Ross's true nature in front of everyone, and I failed. But wait a little longer, the whole world will see Ross's true form." Hearing this, Sam doesn't wait any longer and heads straight to President Ross. Meanwhile, as the war between Japan and America is halted, Japan agrees once again to America's deal. President Ross prepares to give a speech about the agreement in front of representatives of all countries. However, during the speech, a recording of the conversation between Samuel and Mr. Ross starts playing through some speakers at the venue, and it is also shown on the news, revealing that it was because of Samuel that Mr. Ross became president. Seeing all this, Mr. Ross begins to fall ill again as before, and within moments, his tension becomes so extreme that he transforms into Red Hulk. This is exactly what Samuel had wanted all along, to make everyone see Mr. Ross as a monster. And now, he has succeeded. When Sam sees Mr. Ross transformed into Red Hulk and wreaking havoc, he gets fully ready to try and stop Red Hulk. But unfortunately, all his efforts fail. So Sam takes him a little away from the White House to a cherry blossom garden, where Mr. Ross used to take his daughter when she was young. When Sam reminds him of his daughter there, Red Hulk calms down and transforms back into Mr. Ross. However, before this, he completely destroys Sam's wingsuit and seriously injures Sam. Afterwards, as promised, Sam frees Isaiah from prison, since Samuel has now confessed to all his crimes. Afterwards, we see Mr. Ross resigning from the presidency and getting himself imprisoned. There, Sam finally reunites him with his daughter, Betty Ross, meaning that since the Incredible Hulk, Betty meets her father again after so many years. Meanwhile, even though Mr. Ross resigns from the presidency, he ensures that, according to his plan, all the countries still sign the adamantium agreement. Afterwards, we see Sam visiting Torres in the hospital and announcing the formation of a new Avengers team, a long-time dream for Torres to become a member. In the post-credits scene, Sam visits Samuel, who is imprisoned, where Samuel warns him that soon some danger from the outside world is heading toward Earth. In fact, Samuel, using his highly intelligent mind, can even predict certain future events, which is how he realizes that a threat from the outside world is approaching Earth very soon, which is probably what we will see in Doomsday or Secret Wars. Okay, so this is where the movie ends.